named. We have two main cavities, that being the oral vestibule and the oral cavity. We'll look more close at all that as we move on. What you see on this chart or this diagram here, of course, we have the hard palate. If you put your tongue at the roof of your mouth, that's the hard palate. There's bone right underneath that. Great question. What facial bone is right underneath there?
Or palatine.
Palatine.
Yeah.
Palatine, the hard palate, hard palate, palatine. Then, of course, right behind that is the soft palate, the uvula. What do we used to call that growing up? We called that the goozle.
The punching bag.
We called that the goozle growing up.
No, I called it a
That's some word my friends come up with, a goozle. We call it a punching bag. That dangly thing's called the uvula. Uvula. Then we have what's called the posterior arch at the back of your throat. We have the tonsils. Some of us have our tonsils still, some of us don't. I still have my tonsils. But that's used for collecting bacteria. And then the apex of the tongue. Your tongue has an apex. The end of your tongue is the apex. That's about what I'm actually about to look like this because I'm going to the dentist next. As soon as we get done with class. And I hate going to the dentist. I gotta get a cleaning done. Only if they get infected.
If they get infected.
Infected. I still have my tonsils.
But that's usually that little, like, little kids who, right?
Typically, yeah. But adults can have their tonsils removed too.
I thought you could take them out if you snore. No?
I think sometimes they can get so large that it might
I think it can
affect your
cause
breathing.
snoring, like if they get, inflamed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why I had that.
Do I snore? My wife says I snore very quietly.
You purr.
Not.
You purr.
I purr.
He is a cat person, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So soft palate is.
Soft palate is right behind the hard palate. Back here. We're going to talk about it a little bit more as we move on. But right behind the uvula and right behind the hard palate is the soft palate.
Salivary?
So what are enclosed dental arches?
Your teeth. See how they make arch shapes? Okay, oral vestibule. What is the oral vestibule? That's the space between the teeth and the cheeks. Right here on the sides. That buccal area. That's the oral vestibule. The oral cavity or mouth proper, that's the space between the dental arches. So mouth is actually behind your teeth, guys. The area from your lips to cheeks in front of the teeth is the oral vestibule. So that roof, of course, is formed by the hard and soft palates together. Hard palate's what you can palpate with your tongue. Soft palate, unless you want to choke yourself, I don't recommend sticking your finger back there unless you want to make yourself vomit. The floor of the oral cavity is formed by the tongue, and that's going to communicate with the pharynx posteriorly via that oropharynx. Remember we talked about the oropharynx a year ago? So the tongue communicates with the pharynx posteriorly via the oropharynx. Yeah, I'm like literally dreading going to the dentist. I hate the dentist. I have to go for the cleaning every year and just gives me so much anxiety.
Bring your dosimeter
My dosimeter.
in case you get
Oh,
those.
can I just get x-rays?
The
I'm not due
Panax.
for x-rays, but
You get them every. What are you talking about? You get them every time you go.
they don't always do x-rays.
No,
on
they
these
do it
either.
only once a year. You do your cleaning every 6
I
months.
get X-rays every time I go.
They just want to charge your insurance. They
They can charge
Yeah, and they want to charge you for that fluoride treatment. It really doesn't do anything. It's only $30 to do the fluoride treatment. Like, yeah, I got fluoride in my toothpaste. I'm good. Okay, moving on, guys. Let's start with the hard palate. That's that hard portion you palpate with your tongue, right behind the roof of your mouth. Or sorry, the top layer of your teeth, right behind is that hard palate. That's the most anterior portion of the roof. That's formed by those maxillae and primarily the palatine bones. Maxillae and palatine bones. And that soft palate begins right behind your last molar, the last of your teeth. Suspended from the posterior bone of the hard palate. And that's going to function as a partial septum between your mouth and pharynx. And it's actually very sensitive to touch, which is why it induces the gag reflex. People that self-vomit, if they palpate the soft palate, that's what causes them to vomit. Causes you to gag. So I don't recommend palpating your soft palates. If you do so, do it in the back of the class by the trash can.
We're in the restroom.
Or in the restroom.
Or Mr. Donahue's office.
Please no. I don't respond well to vomit. From the sound to the look to the smell of vomit, I just do not,
You know I'm gonna do that one day.
do not
You make
handle it
me-
well.
When we graduate, all over.
That's just not very nice.
Anytime
What's wrong
I see
with
a
y'all?
patient getting nauseous, I'm like, I need to step out, and I walk out. 'Cause I-
Don't do that when you're technical.
What if they fall off? That's liability.
I'm like on a 7 or 8 year vomit streak of not having vomited. Trying to keep it there.
What about when the kids?
Huh?
The kids?
He's like, my wife takes care of that.
No stomach bugs. No bad Taco Bell.
Better knock on some wood.
I am not superstitious.
Wait, can you go back? No. Please no.
I am not superstitious.
Alright.
I'll knock on your skull though.
Hand over.
Behind. Begins behind the last word.
You off of that.
We good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the frenulum of the tongue. So if you were to lift your tongue up towards the roof of your mouth, there's a little band underneath your tongue. That is called the frenulum of the tongue. That's what's going to connect your tongue to the bottom of your oral cavity.
There's no 4 and 5?
Huh?
There's no 4
Yeah,
and
you
5?
went from 3 to 6.
I sure did. That's something I cut out. That wasn't,
Okay.
yeah. If you ever see that number jump around, stuff I've removed that you didn't need to know.
Take it.
Oh,
It connects to the bottom of what?
connects to the bottom of the oral cavity.
What was the-
specifically?
The ligament that connected the liver lobes?
Falciform ligament.
Falciform.
This is the frenulum of the tongue. Extends underneath the tongue and the sublingual space. So that sublingual medication goes near that frenulum. That's going to restrict you from basically swallowing your tongue. You ever hear someone swallowing their tongue? Like,
Yeah.
like if you didn't have that frenulum, you could actually curve your tongue back into your throat and swallow your tongue. Which would choke
Isn't
you.
that why they lay people on their sides when they're like?
Like when they're sneezing and stuff?
Yeah, yeah. so they-
Yeah, because they can sometimes have, they can break that frenulum.
Or they can bite their tongue off.
Supposedly that's what Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons did in Kiss with the long tongue.
Oh, he cut
He
his?
cut the frenulum. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the theory.
What
I
about
know
this
Gene
one?
Simmons is like way before a lot of our time, but he's the guy in Kiss with the very long tongue. You know what I'm talking about?
Goes down like here.
Mhm.
Gene Simmons, right? Lights off the chicken heads, right?
Is it-
That's Ozzy
No,
Osbourne.
yeah, that's Ozzy.
Well,
Yeah.
what about this one?
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
This one.
You know how you have something attached to it?
Oh.
That's another frenulum.
Yeah, what does that hold?
Keeps, I guess, this.
I guess it keeps you from drooling on yourself. I
I
don't know. I have never researched that frenulum. You have to tell me.
We don't need to know it.
And then of course your teeth. I think we know what teeth are for.
Chewing.
Mastication.
We're not saying chewing anymore. They're for mastication.
Right ear off.
That
For
sounds like
mastication.
slaughter. That sounds like that's
Yeah, Mike Tyson.
No, not Mike Tyson.
Y'all are more goofy in the afternoons. I can get used to this.
Oh,
So
yeah.
y'all delirious at this point?
No.
We like you.
I like y'all too.
I guess we can
Most
get
days.
used to you in the afternoon.
Dang.
All right, let's stop looking underneath that tongue. That's kind of gross. All right, salivary glands. We already talked a little bit about these on the diagram. We have 3 pairs, that being the parotid, which is the largest. Please know that's the largest of the 3. Followed by the submandibular, second largest, and the smallest would be the sublingual salivary glands. So your spit's coming from all those areas, guys. You got spit coming from all over the place in your mouth. By the way, fun fact on bullet point number 2, you actually produce a liter of spit per day. A liter of saliva. You know how big a liter is?
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
So where does it all go? You actually swallow it throughout the day. You're swallowing spit whether you know it or not. Hopefully not spitting like some, don't you hate when people spit? Like, You ever grow up with people that spit a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Guys would think it would be cool to spit loogies and stuff.
My husband.
That's nasty. That's nasty. And what saliva do, guys? It does have a purpose in digestion. It's actually going to mix that food during mastication. It's going to soften the food, keep it moist. Don't you love that word, moist? It was like a while people that hated the word moist. Y'all remember that? People thought the word moist was gross.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm talking about that. Keep the mouth moist and contribute to digestive enzymes. We're all losing it this afternoon. So saliva is going to keep everything nice and moist, help you swallow, soften the food, so you don't choke.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
So the saliva comes from the ducts, correct?
Mhm.
Where is the parotid duct going out of? Is that the hard palatine or the palatine surface?
So if you were to lift your lips up right here,
Mhm.
you could see the little salivary ducts under here. It's like it squirts up at the top of your mouth.
So that would be from the parotid?
Sounds really gross, but yeah, the saliva squirts out of there.
You're telling me I'm a snake?
What you say? I'm sorry,
Some
you said
people
you-
can actually do that at will. Isn't that called gleeking?
I was actually about to bring that up. Is it gleeking or gleeting?
No, stop it.
Growing up, some people could gleet. I think it's called gleeting.
Yeah, it's
Gleeting or gleeking?
What is
I've seen
Where they can
the,
squirt the saliva out of the ducts.
you can
Like,
see
like
the
they
duct under your tongue.
move their
when
tongue a
it
certain way and it would
opens.
squirt out.
I can see it open.
I can
and
try.
have, like,
Don't try.
Do it
outside. We're way off subject.
That's crazy. I haven't done it in a
And
while.
I remember in middle school there were some guys that could do that.
My grandma taught me that.
Oh, so you gleet?
No, but I don't know purposely no.
Dude.
It comes out of that, I think it comes out of that submandibular duct.
Yeah, the gleating comes out actually specifically right here, guys.
Yeah.
Like Cody was saying, submandibular, there's the path of the gleat. That's not going to be on the test, but there you go.
It's definitely weird.
I don't know what we're talking about anymore today.
He said I'm so done with y'all.
Y'all are just too much today. I'm too much today too. What can I say? All right, so I did skip, guys. That's all you need to know about salivary
That's all we need to
glands.
know?
So once again, when you see these, if you're not seeing all these numbers, it's because I've removed a lot of unnecessary info. Okay, so the pharynx that does serve as a passage for both food and air is also part of digestion and respiration. Don't forget that fact. People often do. This number right here, very important. They've been sneaking that question in there. The pharynx is approximately 5 inches in length in the average human being. 5 inches in length. There are 3 parts of the pharynx. Do y'all remember what they were? Oropharynx, nasopharynx, and laryngopharynx.
Good job, Mom.
In order, naso, oro, laryngo. Sindhu can hear now. She's good.
You can ask
I'll
her.
make sure.
Hold on.
Just a little
We'll see.
thumbs up. Yeah, you might want to ask.
Sindhu, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up or something.
Sounds like she can't hear you.
We're gonna have to get that fixed.
Oh, she
The A, he said.
Well, with like 2 minutes go in class, we'll get that fixed.
Good thing.
We got the recording. All
She
right.
said no.
Hold on.
She still can't hear?
Hold on.
Okay.
But she been hearing in other.
Yeah, I got set the same way. That's weird.
No, I don't think we'll do it.
Mr. Funk said he had it muted and she could hear.
She could hear when it was muted because I had it muted earlier and she said she couldn't hear.
She couldn't hear. That was the last thing she said, but before we didn't hear from her anymore. She
All right,
said,
we're gonna have to
"I
keep that
can't hear
fixed."
you guys.
Sorry, Sindhu. I know you can't hear me, but sorry. We'll get it fixed for next time.
You should probably send her the card.
Nice try.
Oh my God, you're so
It's called tough love.
Okay.
Tough love. You'll thank me later.
Will we?
You will. All right, pharynx, guys. It is going to extend into areas. Please make sure you know that number. I didn't highlight. Oh, I did highlight. Yes. Level of C6 and C7. It does become continuous with the esophagus. pharynx, larynx, esophagus. That's the path that goes. There's the three portions we just talked about: naso-oro-laryngopharynx. Naso, of course, being in the nasal cavity. Oropharynx, right behind the tongue and the uvula. Laryngopharynx, where that voice box or vocal cords are located. And then once we get past the epiglottis, it becomes the esophagus. Now, do y'all remember, using positional terms, how is the esophagus in orientation with the trachea?
Interior.
Anterior.
Did y'all hear what I said? How is the esophagus in orientation with the trachea?
Posterior.
Posterior. Therefore, trachea is anterior to the esophagus. And the way you can always remember that, guys, think about when they do a trach on somebody. They gotta go through the trachea. It has to be in the front. Otherwise, you pierce the esophagus, you're gonna have a bad time.
So on the lateral view of a C-spine or whatever,
Mhm.
is the trachea then the esophagus when you're labeling trachea?
Mhm. When you see the air in the trachea, it's in
Mhm.
front of the esophagus.
So the, pharynx, epiglottis,
Yes. And it's 5 inches in length, approximately.
trachea start at C6.
Trachea, it varies,
It
approximately.
ends at T4.
There's a few variances in where those begin and end, but I try to give you what's most commonly told on the locations. Okay, the larynx, one that we often forget about. Of course, larynx is right after the pharynx. Very small portion of that tract that we've been talking about. It's also a division of the respiratory system. It's the organ of voice, and it's approximately 1.5 inches in length. It's actually suspended from the hyoid bone. We didn't talk about that last time. The larynx is suspended by the hyoid bone. That's the hyoid bone's purpose, actually. And then that's going to extend from C4 to the inferior margin of C6. So once again, you see a little overlap there in the locations. C4 to C6.
What do you mean suspended from, like, in front of?
Basically, the hyoid bone's kind of just attached to it
Oh.
with ligaments. So larynx, of course, is also in front of the esophagus. So you see right here, before it comes to trachea. And that's where we do not want food going. We rely on that epiglottis to close that off.
And if it does, it's called aspirating.
Correct. Very good. Sorry, I thought that was a potato. The light was in my eye.
When I was in high school, I went to Body Worlds. Did you
Oh
remember
yeah,
that?
the one with the real actual
yeah, so I got to
bodies.
hold the liver.
It's a really cool exhibit. If you ever get a chance to see that, Body
I was like,
Worlds,
oh,
it comes to the
It's like
Houston
dessert.
Science Museum every once in a while. It's actual cadavers they have on display.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Really cool.
It's kind of freaky, but yeah.
Yes.
Are we gonna need to know
Yeah, they
the
have
is rheumatoid and vestibular fold and stuff like that?
No.
And then they let you, like,
Don't worry about that. Let's just want to know it. We don't visualize vocal cords and X-ray. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
They give you like a puppy and they give you like something.
All right. So talking a little bit more about the larynx before we keep moving on. Epiglottis. Where's that located? Right above that laryngeal entrance. Its main purpose, we know by now. We've all done swallow studies by this point, I'm sure. Swallow function studies. It's. I love how this is defined. This always makes me laugh. It's said to prevent food from passing into the larynx during swallowing. That's the book's definition. It's said to prevent. Not that it guarantees it prevents, it's only said to prevent. I don't know why it makes me laugh, but it does. Thyroid cartilage, I'm the only one laughing at that.
Yeah.
The thyroid cartilage is going to be what forms the laryngeal prominence or that Adam's apple as well. Thyroid cartilage right in the front here, guys. Right in the front. The epiglottis, of course, that's a major organ that we visualize on our fluoroscopies, the swallow function studies. Have y'all seen the little flap open and close? Have you seen somebody's not working, where they're choking? Some people get paralysis in the epiglottis.
I saw one where
That's where they get steroid shots, right?
Mhm.
Why does that happen?
Number of factors: nerve issues, age, injury. Get punched in the throat can damage it.
Oh,
I'm just saying, there's a new.
What are you teaching?
I don't know what I'm teaching in this class anymore. We're talking about some weird stuff in here. Miss Donahue was talking about punching somebody in the throat.
Yeah.
It's even on video. Look at that.
We've all talked about
We've also got you talking about shanks, and,
Talking
you know,
about
the shiv of the skull.
Whatever that.
Someone's gonna like edit the video and have me say, "I'm gonna punch you in the throat." Or,
If you break
cut
the
that out.
skull, you can grab the Krista Galley and make a really cool blade.
okay, esophagus. Next organ we're gonna talk about. So we go from. You'll write too slow. Okay. Okay. By all means, go ahead.
Hand on the hip.
Sounds so defeated when you said that.
Good. All right. Esophagus. Of course, that's that long muscular tube where the food passes from the throat all the way to the stomach. And please know the length of the esophagus as well. It is approximately 10 inches long, 1.9 centimeters in diameter. With the main purchase, I'm going to sit down. What's the main purpose? It functions to convey or move food and saliva from the laryngopharynx to the stomach, specifically. Laryngopharynx to the stomach. And does that via what process, guys? Peristalsis. It also lies in line with the MSP, mid-sagittal plane.
I think I said Harry Silver. I was like, what? That's tongue tied.
You trying to purchase something too?
This feels like the longest Tuesday, Thursday. I feel like I wanna be in clinic.
I don't think anyone's ever said that before.
Until today.
It's a heavy semester, guys. 4 classes. It's a lot.
I'm not way out today.
Y'all should've gave
We did
me
that so you'd
some
only
of
have 3 in your last semester.
these. I said them to leave
Isn't that
We
better?
only had 2 in the summer. You could have. What she said.
He said, mm-hmm.
Next year.
He's like, I can't keep y'all happy.
You just can't
for
make it. You
nothing."
can't make everybody happy. What can I say? I'd move that to summer. Why do we have 3 classes in the summer? So much.
That's what we sound like in your head.
That's my voice for y'all in my head.
That's funny. I have a voice for you too.
Oh. Don't be shy.
Gold star question, right? That's what I always say. Gold star. Put a star on that.
I have a thing for gold stars.
The first thing what's it called?
Esophagus. Where does it originate? Approximately at C6. Another location. Make sure you know that. Very important. It's going to join the stomach. Very important note here at what we call the esophago-gastric junction. It's in the word esophago-gastric, esophagus, stomach. Esophago-gastric junction, that's at the level of T11. T11. So it starts at C6, it ends at T11. Very long tube. Luckily, on the esophagus, there really isn't very many landmarks that we're worried about. Stomach, we got a bunch we got to start naming.
We don't need to know how long the esophagus is.
10 inches, you do.
10 inches?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Was on
my
the
bad.
previous slide. Five, 1.5, 10, correct.
The trachea was what, 4?
Approximately 4. I always say approximate because there's variances on those, of course, between patients, but on average, that's what it's going to be. And there you go. Of course, you should be familiar with that by now, guys. You've all went through fluoro at this point. What kind of exam is this that we're looking at?
The swallows. Oh, that's a program.
Upper GI.
Guys, what kind of exam is this?
Upper GI.
What are we looking at? What is this organ? What is this?
Look at the
esophagus.
So it's an esophagram.
I said
Esophagram.
No, it's
You know,
not coating
I'll tell you why you know it's an esophagram, because you can see the entire esophagus. If it was an upper GI, we wouldn't be focused up here. And I know some doctors like to watch it flow, but this is a plain radiograph, which is they took this x-ray while they were swallowing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an esophagram. And that marker is just hurting me. It should be up here and not upside down. Okay, there's another example of some esophagams there, guys. This is actually some very swollen esophagi. Is that the plural? Esophagi? Some very swollen esophagi there. That's what we call a peristaltic constricture that we're looking at. It's all inflamed. So we're going to come back to that in the positioning of what we're looking at exactly there. I'm sorry, what were you saying? How does that happen? Usually infection, if I'm not mistaken, or acid that's eroding away at the esophagus can cause it to inflame like that. All right, let's talk about the big daddy here.
Oh.
Big daddy stomach. All right, stomach's
Big
got a lot of
daddy
stuff.
stomach.
I'm telling you, you don't know what's. I'm very unpredictable in the afternoon, guys. I'm gonna apologize for this whole semester. Big daddy stomach. Here we go. That's what we're gonna call it. Lots of anatomy to label on that stomach, as you can see, guys. And we do need to know all of these structures. We're gonna be able to see these on our plain upper GI films. And the plain films that the radiologists will freeze during a fluoro, you can identify all these things we're looking at. We have 4 main parts, that being the cardia, the fundus, the body, and the pyloric portions. But in between, we got a lot of other stuff, as you can see. Let's start at where the esophagus attaches, guys. Here's where the esophagus terminates. It enters what we call the cardiac antrum. Why is it called that? It's close to your heart, the cardiac antrum. Then followed by this little neck area we call the cardia. And we have what's called the cardiac notch. It's this little area where the food enters right before we see the fundus of the stomach, cardiac notch. Now, of course, that's what we all remember, the fundus. Fundus being the most superior portion of the stomach. Very important, because when we start looking at barium, depending on how we're positioned, that barium is going to manifest either in the fundus or the body areas of the stomach. Speaking of the body, easiest to remember, that's the big, large portion you see here. We have 2 curvatures in the stomach. On the right side of the stomach, we have the smaller of the 2, called the lesser curvature. On the left side of the stomach, we have the larger of the 2, called the greater curvature. One's great, one's less. Then, as we move down towards the inferior portion of the stomach, we have the pyloric antrum, followed by the pyloric sphincter. And when you see sphincter, you know it's going to be squeezing contents. It's going to squeeze the food from the stomach to the duodenum. So pyloric sphincter is that last little point in the stomach before it becomes small intestine. Now we also have another notch on the stomach, not to be confused with the cardiac notch, we have the angular notch. Y'all still with me? That was a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Main portion, once again, cardia, right here, where it's going from esophagus to stomach. Most superior portion, fundus. Body is the largest of the stomach. And then we have what's called the pyloric portion, also called the pylorus sometimes, the pylorus. Now, if we open up the stomach, like we see right here, we got all these little folds inside of it. That's what we call the rugae. The rugae. That's what's going to assist in churning the food, moving it around, help it digest.
So Ruby does the digestion.
It helps aid in digestion. It's little muscular folds. It's going to churn the contents. Kind of like a washing machine. It's moving around. Now, does anybody know what food contents become once it enters your stomach and starts mixing in with stomach acid? It becomes no longer food, it becomes another substance. You don't know what the name is?
It's not. Is it the bolus?
Not a bolus. It starts with a C. Not crab. That's at the end. We're not there yet.
To the Titus.
It's called chyme. Chyme. It becomes what's called chyme. Yes. CHYME. And that is where I'm going to stop today, guys. So I actually got to get out of here and go to a dentist appointment. It's 5 minutes early. You do not expect to get out 5 minutes early. But today, I'm going to